Hi everybody, we're back with Black Bear Prepper here. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mini-14 and the 8 reasons why it is better than the AR or the AK. So kind of the two other popular rifles out there in America. Mini-14 is very, very popular for a reason, a bunch of reasons really. So we're going to give you my 8 reasons why I shoot the mini-14 versus the AR-15. So I live in California. It's definitely a much better rifle to shoot here. I've been shooting minis since the late 80s. I've used them in competition before we had scopes or anything else on them in 3-gun tournaments. So I've just kind of always kept with mini-14s. I really like them. And some people say, well, that's because you don't own an AR. I have ARs. I've shot AKs. I like minis. I just like the way they fit in my arm. I like the way I've always been a shotgun shooter, and I like the way they point like a shotgun. I like them. So to the point of where I've shot them to when I first got my very first mini, many years ago. I shot it so much it actually built up a cake of, literally it had formed inside the stock where the piston chamber is on this one. They actually have a chamber in here that I had actually filled full of fouling inside, and that fouling had got to the point of where it actually had formed itself to the parts in the gun, and the gun kept running just fine. So I'm a big fan of their reliability. So we're going to start out with my favorite reason. They are less intimidating to pull out and go to the range than an AR. So if you're at a range where they're a hunting group of people, you can run little 5-round factory magazines. So definitely this gun looks a lot less intimidating. With the wooden stock, we go over to our local range where it's a lot of guys that are more hunting kind of guys. They look at the ARs as kind of like this new thing. So even gun guys sometimes don't like the ARs as much as other guns. Where these are a little bit more acceptable because they're a wooden stock gun, and they look a little less intimidating. People pull them out. You put them on the table. People ask which one's the most dangerous. It's always the AR, even though this is the same round, and truthfully a little longer barrel with the 18-inch barrel. About the same size gun with 2 inches longer on the barrel, so a little bit more distance out of it. Okay? So, that was kind of Bill Ruger's design here. When he first designed them, was a ranch rifle, a gun that they could literally throw in the back of their car and work just fine. They're built off the version of the M14 or the fully automatic version, or the M1A, the standard version, or the 308 version of this rifle. They're kind of broke down. Now, I actually like some of the features on this even more than that rifle. Okay? So, kind of starting out with number one, they're less likely to have the cops called on you if you pull one out and are out there shooting on your property, and they're not going to sit there and say there's a bunch of guys with a bunch of machine guns out there. It's just funny how that works. People tend to like them a little bit better because they are that. Okay? So second, this one is a huge advantage over the over the AR. These are piston driven guns. If you've watched our videos on how to maintain and clean and lube an AR or a mini-14, these guns are piston driven, which means they have a self-cleaning piston system right up here. ARs run on a direct impingement system, or a system designed to, they call it crapping where you eat, meaning that the gun has a little hole in the barrel here, so when you fire the round, it goes up, takes gas pressure, and pushes back the bolt in here, and dumps all the gas pressure in here. That's where you have to clean a gun, because it has fouling in it, and you put it all in the exact worst spot you can possibly do. I think that's stupid. 2, it makes that area very hot. And 3, you end up with having a small explosion of gas out the side, which is why they tend to be a little harsher for AR-15 wise on suppressors. So if you have a suppressed gun, sometimes you've got to change springs and all kinds of other things to make them work. Where these guys, because they're piston driven and it's a self-cleaning piston system, meaning that they dump right here into the stock. It's even a little better than the M1As, which dump onto the ground right here. So sometimes you get that little puff of smoke if you're running prone, which you don't with these. Huge advantage in my book. I just like them. They become very reliable because of that, because they don't have to be lubed. You know, the biggest problem I see with guys when they have guns that won't cycle, things like that, is because they have not lubed them. So, huge. Definitely worry about that. So, when you get into a gun like this, piston driven, much more reliable in my book. I tend to, if I was in a situation, the zombie apocalypse, where I had to run into a gun store and pick one off the shelf, this is what I'd pick every single time. You know, out of the box, one of the most reliable guns on the market. Definitely the way to go. Okay, they can have folding stocks. Okay, so because all of the spring mechanism is in the forearm or in foregrip here, there is no reason for the stock not to be able to fold. So if you're an A-team follower, which I am, I love the A-team. I always thought it was really cool that I have the gun the A-team shot. They have the folding stocks here. You'll see in some of my older videos where I show you the ATI stock. Those are not legal here in California to be put on the guns. But in some states where you're allowed to have folding stocks, it's a huge advantage. You can sit there, keep it if you're sitting there and you're just, you know, you're out on patrol or you're out just walking your field or something like that. You can have the stock folded over and it's not up here in your face. That's an advantage if you've ever walked around with a stock in your face all day long. So, huge advantage there. Foldable stocks. There's lots of different stocks out there. Everybody says that the AR has 10 times more stocks. I don't see the reason. Foldable stocks is a feature that the AR doesn't have, and you can actually shoot them in the folded position. More like the paratrooper style back when they were doing the M1 carbines. So I've had kind of the whole genre of guns. I really like the M1 Grands. I really love the M14s or M1As. I had a M1 carbine, which I loved until it kind of went full auto at the very end of its life, where we just wore it out. The mini-14 I picked up after that, and I've had mini-14s ever since. But I've also had lots of other guns, but I do really, really like these. So, so we have definitely, you know, open bolt design. So these guns have the open bolt design. So meaning that an AR can have the problem of a major malfunction that I've never seen it happen to anybody else. I've never had it happen to any of my ARs. But you can actually have what they call brass over bolt, where the actual spent brass gets stuck over top of the bolt and jams the gun because it's covered on top of the gun. Where this gun, you can see straight through it. So I can get my hands all up in here. I can get right up into the barrel. I can get a screwdriver in there to pry out a piece of spent brass, whatever I need to do that. Up top here, there's no reasons I can't just pop them round out, run the bolt a couple times. Anything that's in there is going to fall out and you're ready to go again. Okay? So open bolt design, definitely a big advantage over the other one. Now you're going to say, well, no, what about the snow and the rain? And this is the... Okay. Well, in my opinion, don't get your guns drenched. Don't get your guns full of mud. Keep your guns out of the mud. You know, that is an advantage of the ARs, that they do have the flap that can cover up and keep their guns fairly mud-free. As far as, you know, the AKs, they have a little flap that goes up against them. I've ran them into all kinds of conditions, sandy, dirty conditions, running prone, all those kind of things. I've never had one fail because of dirt buildup, because I run them fairly dry. I don't run them with a lot of grease and all that other gook. In fact, most of the time I've ever seen one fail, it's because they lube the damn thing a little too much. So when it comes into that, so open bolt design makes it real easy. So that's number 5. Number 6 comes as a complete gun. So this gun comes this way. I go to the store, I pick it up just like this. I add a scope to it, a mow rod, and all of a sudden we're running a little trigger job and they're ready to go. But they come from the factory tested all together. I've seen a lot of ARs fail, and usually that's because they have 55 different pieces from 5,000 different companies. So, and people put them together that had no idea what they're doing, which is why I would never buy a used AR. So, if you're going to buy an AR and you're not a gun guy, buy one that's been pre-put together. Buy a nice little Smith & Wesson Sporter. They work just great. They're awesome guns. Jerry Michalek uses one. And they come directly from the factory ready to go. Okay? Number 7. This is the feature that most people will tell you is a drawback. I think it's a plus, which is the RockLock Magazine system. Now, why do AKs have a rock-in magazine? Because they do not have a bolt holdback, which is why this beats the AK. Meaning on the last round, most of the time, it's going to lock the bolt back on the last round, so you can change it out on an empty, throw out your old mag, load it in on an open bolt. Now on AKs load with a closed bolt because they have no bolt hold open. So when you're putting it in there, a lot of guns, when they're fully loaded, mags fully loaded, don't want to go into the gun. You'll think you've got it in there on an AR, and it falls right back out. I've actually seen it happen in tournaments, where the actual gun itself has, you put the magazine in there, you watch the guy fire the first round, either the first round doesn't go off at all, because there's no round ever racked into the chamber, or it fires the first round and the magazine falls out the bottom right on the ground, right in front of them. That's always fun. So the rock-in magazine, to me, on a full loaded magazine on a closed bolt, is much easier. So let's say I'm doing a tactical reload. I'm in some kind of a situation where I know I'm going to, maybe I've got in a gun battle or whatever, and I want to change out my half-empty magazine. I can sit there, put this in my dump pouch, grab a brand new magazine, keeping the gun loaded, because I can still fire the round that's in there, and rock a magazine right back in on a fully loaded magazine. Definitely a plus. Now, as always, I do always recommend, if you're going to load magazines, that you leave your last round on the left-hand side. Whatever you decide to do, I always recommend doing 1 to 2 rounds less on any magazine you put on any gun. Except for the 5-rounders, they seem to work pretty good. But on any 30-round magazine, these happen to be 5 rounds from Tapco. I always recommend storing them with the round from mini-14s as the last round on the left-hand side instead of the right-hand side. This makes it a lot easier to load. They tend to store a lot better and not drop those rounds out of the gun. And that's how I store my magazines, with that last round on the left-hand side. Okay. This, I think, is really cool for my family. So I have left-handers in my family. So these guns are ambidextrous, meaning that the bolt release is right here. Doesn't matter whether you're on the right or the left. The gun does not have any right or left side. Your safety is right here in the middle. It doesn't matter whether I operate it with my left hand, my right hand. It does not care. It doesn't care because the gun is considered, symmetrically on both sides. It doesn't care whether I'm right-handed or left-handed. That's a huge advantage, especially in California where we have to have little fins and all kinds of other things. Or safeties that are only on the left-hand side. That's really hard to operate if you're a left-handed person. So trying to get your finger up there to make that work, I have no idea how to make that work. I don't shoot left-handed very much with ARs. So with this one, it's really super easy. Put your finger in there, push it forward, you're ready to go. Drop out the magazine. Doesn't matter whether I do it left-handed or right-handed. It's really cool. So for left-handed people, I definitely recommend the mini-14. Honorable mentions. Okay. Mechanical offset. This is one that I think is not the biggest deal in the world, but it is a deal. So most ARs, their mechanism is up high, so it's up here. So you end up with a scope that ends up being about here, about 2 to 3 inches off the actual barrel itself. So up close, if you're trying to take headshots, you have to aim 2 to 3 inches high. Now, the mini-14, being a lower bolt design, you actually have a really, really low mechanical offset, meaning that the actual scope or sights is much closer to the barrel. Now, when it comes to the mechanical or iron sights, they are right on the barrel. So that's a huge advantage in distance shooting. So this gun tends to, with your standard iron sights, shoot 100 yards, 25 yards, fairly similar all the way through. So I always use a 100 round or 100 yard sight in, zeroing my guns at 100 yards, and that tends to keep me a fairly close group, even out to about 200 plus yards. 300, you got a little drop. That's why I run the sights that already have the bullet drop compensators built into them. Excuse me there. So, that's kind of my 8 reasons. Put them at the bottom if you don't like my 8 reasons. Tell me that I suck because I don't shoot ARs, which I do. Have them, love them. Actually, I hate them. I don't like them at all. But I have them, and I've shot them a lot because I realize that if there's any other situation on Earth there'll be plenty of them laying around on the ground. Now there also might be, you might want to pick up a mini-14 because it's one of the most popular rifles in America. There might be one of those laying on the ground also, or an M1A, or an M14, or an M1 Grand, or an M1 Carbine, all running basically the same system as the mini-14. So you're able to take care of all 4 rifles basically, you know, operating wise with a mini-14. And the mini-14 is a ton of fun to shoot. If you shoot one, I almost guarantee you're going to like it. So, as always, leave comments down the bottom. You know, put likes and shares. Tell your friends about it if they're thinking about a rifle, especially in California. You know, these guns have never been banned all the way through all the bans where the ARs have, especially in California. We have all kinds of special requirements in California, which this gun does not. And I don't see in the future them being able to figure out because it has a, you know, it has that brown stock on it. It has that standard stock. They can't tell the difference between deadly and not deadly based on its view. So as always, guys, have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.